let's not waste any time here. Let's get right into it. I owe Moises Caicedo an apology. I owe him an apology, guys. Now look, I'm not perfect. I'm not a perfect analyst. I don't know everything about the game. I didn't write the book of football. I get things wrong. But I think it's also important, not just in football, but in life, to be able to hold ourselves accountable. And when we do get things wrong, or when new evidence comes to the table, or when you feel like you've learned something new, we have the decency and the humility to put our hands up and say, my bad, right? And I'm very, very capable of doing so. In this situation, definitely. And it's like they say, man, every head must bow, every tongue must confess. Moises Caicedo, I owe you an apology. I got it wrong. I definitely got it wrong. Now, for some people, you might be wondering, what the hell are you talking about, Lyes? When Moises Caicedo joined Chelsea for north of £100 million, I looked at the signing a little perplexed. Because I thought Kaisedo was a good player at Brighton, but I looked at the price tag and thought to myself, this just doesn't make sense to me. Caicedo over £100 million. I feel like the role he plays is not worth that of £100 million. I feel like you can find players to do what he does for less money. And I felt like it was a case of a Premier League player who was in really good form being targeted and kind of being the hype player at the moment, and someone splashing the cash on him, buying into the hype. That was the way I viewed it, right? And I remember I was at Kaisedo's first game. I was there with JD. I was there at the game versus West Ham on his debut, where I think he conceded a penalty. He felt his knees at the end of the game. It was a really poor debut. And because I already had my opinion of the Kaisedo signing, that almost reinforced in my head that, oh, this is not going to work out. What are Chelsea doing? And to be fair to Kaisedo, he had an okay first season, I thought, right? He definitely grew as the season went on, but when I look back at it as well too, did Pochettino use Kaisedo to the maximum of his abilities? Probably not. At times as well too, I thought Kaisedo, maybe when I look back at it, was probably left on an island one too many times, having to do too much. But I came out of that first season at Chelsea and just thought to myself, Kaisedo is underwhelming to me for the amount of money that they spent. Like, I don't think Chelsea are really getting the value for money they spent on the guy. I think he's a good player, but what is he doing that is worth the Premier League record fee? I thought that for a lot of that season. And then last year happened, and he had a really, really, really strong campaign last year. Arguably the best midfielder in the league last year, with Gravenberch and McAllister, of course, but he was right in that conversation. But I think the word of the day here is preconceived bias. Because my preconceived bias of Kaisedo was that in which I thought, not worth the money, underwhelming. I even went on SDS in the summer, and I think I said, Kaisedo doesn't really have an elite trait for me. I just feel like he's good at a lot of things. Maybe that all kind of fed into, because I had this original opinion on Kaisedo, it was very difficult for me to shake it off. And I think that's the case with a lot of football fans. We talk about Gabriel a lot right now, right? And Gabriel is one of the best center backs in the world. I think most people would agree with that, right? But it took Gabriel a whole lot longer to get his flowers than Saliba, for example. Because Gabriel, everyone had a preconceived bias about him due to his first year or so at Arsenal, where he was extremely error prone. And it took a long time for people to be able to shake off that bias and view him for what he had become. I think that's been the case for me with Kaisedo. And for that, I'm going to repeat it. I got it wrong. I'm sorry. It's not even the game against Liverpool that made me see the light, right? Like, the Club World Cup happened, the end of the season last year for happened. I was watching him more and more, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, very clearly he's much better than I thought he was. Much better. But even still, I know Kaisedo's a top player. I think I even said he might be a top 3 defensive midfielder over the summer in the world. But even still, I go into games and maybe I don't watch him and give him enough credit. Maybe, like, again, the idea in the back of my mind doesn't kind of go away. And for example, the game against Liverpool, right? You guys would have watched my match reaction. I spoke for about 20 minutes in that video. I didn't mention Kaisedo bar the goal once, and I think I even gave Enzo man of the match because of Enzo impressing me, as he, to be honest, usually doesn't. But in this game, he really stood out for me. But I think that kind of sums up Kaisedo. His level now is so set in stone that other players outperforming their normal capacity gets more shine than Kaisedo, because he's maybe the most consistent player in the league right now. And look, I think when you look at the position that Kaisedo plays, a lot of people will talk about a few traits that you'd want your defensive midfielder to have, right? You want your defensive midfielder to be, first of all, defensively strong. You want him to protect your back four. You want him to be the first almost line of attack, right? He picks up the ball off his center backs and gets play started. You want him to be the conductor from deep. You want him to do all this stuff. But for me, similar to how I say goalkeepers, at their heart, you just want to feel comfortable with them. You just want a safe pair of hands in goal. With your defensive midfielder, I think the most important trait you can have is consistency. I think that's at its, like, obviously you want other stuff on top of it, but at its very core, your defensive midfielder should be the most consistent player on your team. You want him to just be steady. Kaisedo is steady. But guys, if we're being real with Kaisedo, for over a season now, he really hasn't dropped below an 8 out of 10. Like, his base level now seems to be 7.5, 8 out of 10. And more importantly than that, in the biggest games, he's dominating. And I think that's the word I take away with Kaisedo a lot of the time. Bro, in midfield, this guy dominates midfield battles. He runs midfields in a way that the best midfielders of my generation, when I grew up watching football, did. Gerrard, the way he ran games. Lampard, the way he runs games. Ballack, the way he runs games. Especially from a physical point of view. Kaisedo runs games in midfield for Chelsea. And in a way, right, he is effectively Chelsea's Roy Keane. He's their version of what Man United had with Roy Keane. I'm not trying to compare the two in terms of quality, whatever. But in terms of the role that they play for each team, Moises Caicedo is Chelsea's Roy Keane. He's their enforcer. He is their general. That's the word. Caicedo is Chelsea's midfield general. He runs that midfield. He's a serious player. Even in terms of his demeanor. There's no messing about. There's no tricks. There's no flicks. There's no flair. Just gets the job done. And that performance at Liverpool, we've seen it a few times now, right? It's not the first time we see Kaisedo play like that. But that is the standard for Kaisedo now in the biggest games. He runs them. And for that, like I said, man, I gotta just hold my hands up and say, wow, I got it completely wrong with this guy. I mean, there's this big conversation that continues happening with him and Declan Rice, right? At the weekend, Gary Neville said he thinks Kaisedo is the best midfielder in the country right now. And Jamie Carragher disagreed and said Declan Rice. And when we talk about midfielders, right, let's leave the number 10s out of it, right? Cole Palmer, forward, like these guys they're practically attackers. It's very difficult to compare what those players do compared to the guys who really sit in the engine room. So if we're just talking about like defensive midfielders and central midfielders, at the moment, those are the two names that continue to be pushed by everyone. Moises Caicedo and Declan Rice. Now, they are quite different. Moises Caicedo, for me, is your typical 6, right? He sits in front of his back 4. Don't get it twisted. You can carry the ball forward, passes forward, wins the ball higher up the pitch. Don't get it twisted. You can do that. But primarily, he is your general at the base, shielding his back 4. Whereas Declan Rice is more of your box-to-box midfielder. He's really your all-action dueler who occupies almost all 3 phases of the game. He's winning the ball high up. He's carrying the ball forward. He's winning the ball in the final third at times. He's creating chances. He's become a set-piece demon. He's more of your all-action midfielder. So their roles are quite different, but they have kind of been pushed forward as the 2 best midfielders in the Premier League at the moment. Now, I think there's a lot of candidates for that. Look, Rodri, if Rodri ever gets back to his best form, with all due respect to Kaisedo and Rice, I think Rodri still holds the crown. But I'm looking at Rodri now, the injuries, and I don't think he came back the best version of himself. Maybe he needs to almost take a back seat, and we can reanalyze him when he gets back to full fitness. And at the moment, we look at Kaisedo and Rice. I think there's a lot of good midfielders in the Premier League as well, too. Don't get it twisted. Ryan Gravenberch has had an amazing year, and I'm not going to let Liverpool's recent bad form trick me into thinking Gravenberch isn't good. He's a top midfielder as well, too. I really like the guys at Juventus, at Newcastle, Tonali and Bruno Guimaraes. I think they are both excellent as well, too. McAllister is still top. And you know what? Are we waiting for Adam Morton to make that move to a bigger club to finally say that, oh, he's one of the best midfielders in the league? Or is it because he plays for Palace? I certainly think quality-wise, he's up there, man. But at the moment, you'd have to say Declan Rice and Moises Caicedo in terms of consistency, in terms of current form, in terms of ability. You'd probably push them forward at the moment. I would also say in between Caicedo and Rice, again, Rice is a bit more further forward, and I don't think Caicedo could do what Rice does as an 8. I definitely also don't think Rice could do what Caicedo does as a 6, because as much as I like Rice, Rice is not as comfortable receiving on the half turn and playing those, like, he can play penetrative through the lines passing. Don't get it twisted. I think that's a part of his game that severely gets like underrated. But I do think Caicedo is more comfortable in the first phase, kind of in build-up, dictating play from deep. I do think Caicedo is more comfortable, whereas Declan Rice, I think anywhere further up the pitch is extremely dominant in terms of just how physically strong he is, how much he can carry the ball, popping up in those forward areas in the left half spaces, scoring goals, putting players through on goal. Of course, the corners as well too, the free kicks. I think further up the pitch, Declan Rice is a level above Caicedo, but I don't think Declan Rice can play that lone pivot as well as Moises Caicedo does. I'm sorry, I don't think so. It's actually funny, because when you think about Rice and Caicedo, there was a time where Arsenal wanted both of them at the same time. And looking back at it, I almost think, imagine that had happened. Arsenal are already the best defensive team in the world. Can you imagine Arsenal if they had Declan Rice and Moises Caicedo at the base of their midfield? Guys, they might concede less than 10 goals a season. If you added Moises Caicedo to this Arsenal team, like, I love Zubimendi, great player. But if you swap Zubimendi out with Moises Caicedo and you had Caicedo and Declan Rice together, guys, Arsenal might never concede a goal. Arsenal might never concede a goal if you added Caicedo to that team. We should actually all be thankful that Brighton held out and didn't let him go to Arsenal. Because if they had combined those two brothers in midfield, that's the Great Wall of China right there. Declan Rice, Moises Caicedo together. Who's breaking that down? That's before you even get to that back four of death and Gabriel, Saliba, Timber, Calafiori, and Raya. You got to get past those two bodyguards before you can get to them. I'm spooked, man. It ain't even happened. I'm spooked. And as much as I admire Declan Rice, and I think his impact on winning football is so understated, right now, I'm really struggling to look past Moises Caicedo and what he's doing for Chelsea. Again, when you're talking about just dominating midfields, I feel like he's doing it more than anyone right now for his team. That's not to say Declan Rice doesn't dominate in his own way. But when I watch Kaisedo, I really feel he's running the midfield. The game goes where he decides. Chelsea goes where he decides. Chelsea goes how he performs. At the moment, I think you can seriously make the case that he is the number one midfielder in the league right now. And when I look at your traditional, I don't call him a destroyer, but defensive first-minded midfielders in world football, because I don't consider Vitinha your traditional number 6, right? He's a deep-lying player. He's more Pirlo than he is, I don't know, Makelele, right? We're talking about your traditional holding midfielders. Again, right now with Kaisedo, I'm struggling to really see anyone better than him at that role. Again, forget Pedri is not that kind of player. I don't consider Vitinha that kind of player. Kaisedo is. Right now, I think he's number 1, man. I think he's number 1. When you look at what this guy can do, I was having a conversation actually with a Chelsea fan, and he thinks that Kaisedo is more complete than N'Golo Kante. Now, I think N'Golo Kante is a different cat. I think, first of all, I don't think judging midfielders based on their attributes, like this guy has more attributes than this guy, so it makes him a better midfielder. I don't agree with that, because then, for example, Yaya Toure, is he a better midfielder than Xavi? I don't think so. But I would agree, Kaisedo does have seemingly more to his game than N'Golo Kante, but what N'Golo Kante had to his game was at such a all-encompassing level, right? His ability to cover ground, win the ball, drive forward, and just disrupt entire midfields makes him, for me, 1 of 1. Honestly, he's a 1 of 1 midfielder. But I think it is an interesting conversation, because when you look at Kaisedo, he often gets compared to Kante. But to be honest with you guys, I see him much more in the Michael Essien mold. Seriously. And Essien, Chelsea fans, old Chelsea fans will remember Essien's first 2 seasons at Chelsea were off the charts. The guy, again, almost felt like he was running midfields. The power that he played with, they used to call him the Bison. The stamina, and also incredibly underrated technically as well too. For Lyon and for Chelsea, for years, Michael Essien was a tank, man. But I really get Michael Essien vibes when I see Kaisedo. Chelsea seemed to have this habit of really always having top defensive midfielders, whether that was Essien, Makelele, and Matic. Kante I would really consider more of like a box-to-box midfielder. But really these sitters at the base of midfield that just, wow, to get past them, good luck. You look at someone like Kaisedo. It's staggering, right? Because he's not really a big guy, like in terms of size. He's not tall, for example, but he is so strong. Honestly, when I look at him, he's like a rock. You guys ever played Pokemon when you were younger? I don't know why I just came to my mind. Bro, I used to be a big Pokemon fan when I was younger, man. This dude right here, Machop. You see how big and strong he is, bro? But he's not that big. He's not that tall, but he's like a rock. I mean, I think he actually is a rock in the game. That's what Kaisedo reminds me of, bro. Honestly, he is so physically strong. I feel like to knock this guy off the ball or to win a 50-50 with him, you gotta be a tank, man. He is seriously impressive in that regard. But don't get it twisted, guys, with Kaisedo. He's not just a destroyer. He's at the moment, he's the best ball winner in the Premier League, no doubt about it. But what makes Kaisedo so good as well, too, is he is really the one picking up the ball off his defenders and starting attacks. And especially in a moment where Chelsea have missed Levi Colwill, who is their number 1 build-up machine. Kaisedo's responsibility on the ball has grown ever so much. He's splitting lines from deep. He's receiving on the half turn. He's getting attacks started. And he's also doing it with seemingly a different midfield partner every single game he plays. In the beginning, it seemed like Enzo was his number 1 partner. Then Pochettino liked him a lot with Conor Gallagher. And now Maresca has liked him with Reece James sometimes in midfield. Cucurella will invert next to him. Lavia on the odd occasion that we see him. As we know, he's got an APB out for him. We see him once every 6 months, but sometimes he'll play next to Kaisedo. So the partner is ever rotating, but he's the constant in that midfield. It feels like he plays. Did he play every single game last season? If damn well feels that way, but the partners next to him always change. And that for me symbolizes the consistency. It doesn't really seem to matter who he plays next to. It doesn't really seem to matter what Maresca's game plan is, because Maresca, as we know, adapts to face opposition quite often. It is a different game plan seemingly every game. Whatever the game plan is, whatever the team they're facing, whoever his partner, Kaisedo is going to do what Kaisedo does, and that's dominate. So at the moment, I think we might just be looking at the best midfielder in the Premier League. There's a lot of cats that can chat, right? No disrespect to Declan Rice. I think if you put Declan Rice in that conversation, all power to you, because he's incredible as well too. But at the moment, the way Moises Caicedo is playing, he is virtually everything in one in the midfielder. He's the destroyer. He's the first phase of build-up. He's a creator. He's even adding goals to his game. I mean, that rocket against Liverpool was off the charts, but we've seen him now have an eye for the extraordinary from distance. He does have a real powerful shot to him. Right now, what he's doing for Chelsea is ridiculous. And in a team that has Cole Palmer, I think you have to say Kaisedo is probably the most important player for the team right now. And one thing I'll say about Kaisedo as well too, Chelsea have spent a lot of money since Clearlake came in. Not many of their players, you can actually say, in my opinion, have really lived up value for money, right? They've spent big money on players, but have they fully really repaid their price tag? Or they look worthy of the price tag that was paid for them? Cole Palmer for sure. Moises Caicedo for sure. Joao Pedro, I would say for now. Outside of that, guys, Cucurella, I would say. I'm looking at Pedro Neto. I don't think Pedro Neto looks like a 60 million pound winger. I said at the last video, I think he's frustrating. People are saying, do you see how hard he works? With all due respect, guys, 60 million for a winger, I'm looking for more than hard work. It's great that he works hard, but that's the bare minimum. Of course he should work hard. He's a footballer. But you're spending 60 million on a winger, not for how hard they track their fullback, how they create chances, how they score goals, how they win games. I don't think Neto's done that enough. And I think a lot of Chelsea players that they've bought for big money have failed to kind of live up to the money that Chelsea spent on them. But I think with Kaisedo, I'm sorry, there's no doubt about that anymore. So I started off this video by saying every head must bow, every tongue must confess. Moises Caicedo. I'm humble enough to admit when I'm down, and I am very, very down right now. Moises Caicedo, you're the truth. You are the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So from now on, guys, trust me, I read the comments. I see your guys' opinions. I see your guys' criteria, and I am not egotistical enough to think that, oh, my opinion can't be changed. I see what you guys are saying, and I hear it. I don't think I have been fair enough to Moises Caicedo. And it does feel like if Chelsea are going to have the season that maybe at the start a lot of people thought they could have, it does sit heavily at the feet of himself and Cole Palmer. And one thing with Moises Caicedo, I think he's going to live up to his end of the bargain. So that's just a little bit on Moises Caicedo. What a performance against Liverpool. What a goal. And what a period of form he's been in now for like seemingly the last year. Let's see how far he can go, man. With that being said, guys, international break is here. Leave in the comment section down below what kind of videos you guys want to see in these next 2 weeks. I think we're going to bring back some of the tier lists. We're almost at 90K at the moment. So first of all, subscribe if you haven't. But once we hit 90K, we'll probably either do a hot takes video or a Q&A again. We'll definitely make sure to switch it up. And yeah, just get involved in the comments, man. Like I said, I read all of them. So make sure you get involved. Like, share, subscribe. And I'll see you guys very, very soon. Peace.